Welcome back to ZANTASTIC. Today, I am excited to introduce you to David McKee. He is the founder and CEO of Another Angle Consulting. He helps people break through their mental blocks, rebuild their productivity, and basically step into the best version of themselves, no matter what you're dealing with, burnout, ADHD. What makes this episode so special is David's personal story and his openness about it. He grew up in a difficult environment, battled depression, bipolar disorder, ADHD, years of just high cortisol living. I know a thing or two about that. And so we talk about how to get through these types of blocks. He is very well versed in some philosophies based on Neville Goddard, and we follow the same teachings. And so this conversation really hones in on how to live your best life from learning from people who have done it. And David is one of those. I know you're going to love this conversation. If you've ever felt alone in your struggles, questioned why certain patterns show up in your life, these neuroscience-backed ways of dealing with high stress, finding greater joy, are things you can start using right away. David McKee, thank you so much for being here today. I am delighted and excited about this conversation. How you
Thank you so
doing?
much for having me. I'm so excited to be here and ready to get our conversation on.
Yeah, great. Well, we did have a little conversation a week or two ago, but give the audience just kind of a background of who you are and what you do.
Sure. I'm the founder and CEO of Another Angle Consulting, and we consult and we help businesses as well as individuals, people going through mental health blocks, anything where they feel not productive or not as productive as they used to be, and we help them get back on track and into the best part of their life.
That's amazing. What got you interested in this work?
Sure. So growing up, my dad was diagnosed late in life, unfortunately, after he made a lot of mistakes that broke up our family with manic depression and bipolar disorder. And going through that, it really opened my eyes of, man, things can really hit you differently. And at first, I held a very normal response of the anger and resentment of, why me? How could you do this to us? How could you do this to me specifically? And as I got older, I realized it wasn't about me. He was just someone who was scared in a bad situation and made a wrong choice, a couple wrong choices. And when I was able to break it down in that aspect, I thought of what choices he was making and what the issue was. He had three kids, wasn't happy in his job, had his brain kind of going all over the place with his body, didn't know where he was. He was on certain medications and he'd fall asleep for 48 hours. He was just not okay. And it
Yeah.
was being in there, that has to be scary enough as it is. If you can't feel yourself, and then from on top of that, having all this pressure of really major life decisions he had to make, and just didn't go the right way. So we were able to reconnect later in life, and that really opened my eyes to what psychology, neuroscience can really do. Of if we can understand why people make choices, it really disarms a lot of the trigger and the negative kind of explosion that can happen behind what happens. Most people are very reactive to the choice you make. When you realize, okay, what was going on behind the scenes, I mean, I always use the example of when you watch movies and they show the villain's backstory, and then people start then sympathizing with the villain. It's like, if we know where someone's coming from, it's a lot easier to kind of make sense of, oh, that's why they did it. It's not always as simple as black and white and you just are forced into a corner. It's usually something that you store a lot of emotions, you're not letting stuff out, and then it blows up at the wrong time. And I think we've all been there where we've sent the wrong text or said the thing we didn't mean to say when we're really angry. And so part of the things that I do within coaching now is teaching people that being able to notice that of when you do start having those heightened levels of emotion, whether it's anger, resentment, sadness, frustration, and being able to walk away and not make any major decisions. Write it down if you're thinking of making a decision, come back to it when you're calm, cool, and collected, and see if it actually still makes sense.
Yeah, what a gift that you had the foresight to be able to come back to your relationship with your dad with knowledge, compassion, empathy, sympathy for where he is. Because so many times as kids, well, our parents are almost deities to us. They can do no wrong. And when they
Yeah.
do wrong, it's hard to make sense of that. What would you say to maybe like a younger person who's gone through it with their parents? Like, how do they get to that point of being able to understand their parents and that they were doing the best that they could with the cards that they had. How can somebody look at their relationship with a broken parent in a different way?
Sure. It's being able to analyze what is upsetting you, if you can diagnose that first, and then where were they when they made that decision to essentially upset you. If you could break it down to its simplest core, it's usually something as simple as that. And we tend to react when we're angry. We think the craziest thoughts, and sometimes those crazy thoughts slip out. And I have the conversation with people. I've started doing this to, if this is like, I know that that's me, that I'll say that type of stuff. I think like my mind just kind of goes crazy. I'm ADHD, and like it just kind of starts going into that route. And I let people openly know, hey, if I ever say something in that state, especially people close to me, I mean about 0.5% about it. It's something that I regret later, but in the moment, my mind's kind of feels like a tornado, and I only say what I can get out. So it's finding, was it okay if it was something that you said that hurt somebody? I get into, did you really mean it? Where was that coming from? Why did you say it? And just start the conversation there. If you can start talking about it, it breaks it down. And in a lot of cases, some people don't know until they're actually questioned about that. A lot of us, like when I talk to people, especially people who are the ones who've hurt others, I get back into it and I ask them, and I'm like, did you ever intend, would you have said that if you knew it hurt them? And they're like, oh no, never. Like my dad openly said how much he loved me, and I loved my brother and my sister, and he never wanted to hurt us. He was doing everything to try to be the perfect dad. And by doing that, it forced him into this level of something that he wasn't himself. He wasn't being authentic. And then he lost sight of himself. And that with mental health disease, like it will just take anyone. We all have that issue. I think social media kind of gets into it a lot now too, of having that perfection of everything is perfect. And if you have a bad day, and you go on social media and you see everyone around you is having perfect, everything's great, it messes with your head, and it really can affect you to a negative extent. So it's finding those things, having people that you can talk to about your insecurities. For the longest time, I held stuff inside. I thought I was weird, I was different, and it turns out that I was later diagnosed about 5 years ago with ADHD, and I'm like, oh, that's why I was in that. And it's I wasn't that different, and I wish I talked about it more, because I would have felt more as a group, because I know other people have different levels of ADHD, and for me it was just something I felt so alone, because I was like, I don't know anyone else who understands this. And then on the outside, everyone said I was so happy. I was like, one of the happiest people they know. They always got light from me. They always felt that. So I've always had that type of pull. But man, inside I was tortured for years. And it was just, for anyone who didn't really get the chance to know me or talk to me or see me at that level, they would have thought everything was great. So I wanted to start spreading the word on that, because yeah, it's like, I think a lot of people can feel alone, especially now more than ever post-COVID. And
Sure.
if you start having that conversation, there's so much more in community, and so many people, the more I started talking about this, have reached out and they're like, me too, or my kids are dealing with this, or this is the issue I had with my parents. And man, it's opened up conversations to healing, to let people kind of understand each other better. Society's gotten so much into a finger pointing society of you're wrong because of this, or scorekeeping, I like to call it, of you're holding up everything someone did wrong. And I always say, man, like if you're doing that, like if you're a couple and you're doing that to each other, and you're scorekeeping of I'm going to bring this up when we fight next. And it's like, I know people who actively think like that. And I'm
Yeah.
like, man, you just don't get anywhere. That's a one-way ticket to disaster, because no matter who's looking at it, whatever frame you're in, if it's me, I think they wronged me more. And if it's them, they think I've wronged them more. And it's like, and it's purely that level of not understanding of where were they coming from all of it, because that makes you help make sense of a lot more. And so if you could start having that conversation, long way to answer your question, but just start talking about it, of like, if you
Yeah.
do have something that makes you feel different, like feel not good or like unsafe, anything like that, especially with family, talk about it. Because man, the people I know, especially within my family, when I said, hey, I felt this, they're like, oh my God, I would have turned the end of the world to not let you feel like that if I had known. And it's a lot of that of we think it's weak, or we don't want to like open up. Especially as a man growing up, I was always told to bottle my feelings. So doing this the last couple of years, and getting onto podcasts and like kind of spreading the message, it made me realize, man, I was doing it all wrong. Of like, I feel more connected with people more than ever, and that other people who understand what I've been through, and that it lets you have a community, and lets you kind of feel like you've got something bigger than what you just are.
Yeah. Yeah, that is such good advice. I want to ask you about ADHD, because I've known I know one person who was actually diagnosed, but I have suspicions of a couple of other people who have been in my
Mhm.
life. Um, but they were extremely high. Like when they were on, they were absolutely, completely, and totally brilliant. But there was almost like this darker side where, things would just not be okay. Talk to me a
Yeah.
little bit for somebody who doesn't really understand ADHD. What is it like having ADHD?
So it could be the biggest blessing or biggest curse based off how
Mm,
you treat it. And
yeah.
for me personally, and a lot of people I know relate to this as well, it's a little different for each person. It actually comes from not much genetically. Gabor Mate went into it in Scattered Minds, his book, that it's presented by if there were stress in both parents before they had birth with you, you're likely to have some type of ADHD to some extent. Just stress in the family, because that the way that affects the blood, and then you come out that you're a byproduct of stress and cortisol. So you have heightened cortisol right from the start. But then
Interesting.
other aspects that I've gone into is for me, I need to finish a pattern. I need to see something end for me to kind of get my brain into motion and get into flow state. So I highly advise anyone who kind of make your bed in the morning, do laundry, do some simple tasks that you can start and finish quickly. And it gives your brain almost a cheat code of it's seeing things go right and things get finished to start the day. What is chaos and can drive me to a level where I just am so unfocused and scattered is when I don't get to finish that and I'm constantly interrupted and I've got 18 different things kind of in motion and I'm not able to finish one at any given time. And so that's where it will literally throw me off and I'll be as unproductive as possible. And
Mm,
I've been able to kind of tap into it that if I'm on and I'm focused, locked in, I can do about 8 hours of work in about 90 minutes to 120 minutes, like an hour and a half to 2 hours. My brain gets into like this hyper mode that I can really think and I go. But if I'm not in that state, I could be literally that I can sleep for 8 to 10 hours when it's not time to go to sleep at night. It's just like in the middle, I could just pass out for hours on end. And it's just that the brain needs either deep engagement or deep rest. And if it's kind of like stuck in the middle, you just feel like your tires are spinning and it's just kind of like you're spinning out and you don't really have a way to kind of finish whatever you were starting. So
okay.
for me, I went through about 2 years ago, I was in Florida for a trip. I was in a career transition, going through some change. And I felt so stressed when I got home off the flight. I get home from Florida. I was so relaxed on the trip. And I'm just, man, I'm like in a stuck kind of status. And for whatever reason, I'm meditating and I get just this intuition and this voice, kind of like clear voice that I hear, just says, clean your house, Dave, clean your house. And I didn't know what to do going into that. And then I cleaned for about 3 hours. And I think it was probably like a true spring cleaning. Like I did everything, got all that done. And then I had two songs that came to me, and then a business idea that came to me. And it may not seem related, but if you can finish something and get something and not have you can't really have scattered messes in your house. My teachers called me growing up messily organized. I knew where everything was, but it was all over the place. And so I had to really change that because I was really kind of triggering myself if I left messes everywhere and I came home to it and I didn't want to clean it. And so like you'll see that a lot, especially with ADHD, of people doing laundry. Is it will take them 2 days to do the laundry, that they do part of it and then some of it's just hanging out and like stuck there. And that's a really like very, very common symptom of most ADHD. Of they start a whole lot of things and they're very, very smart and engaged and excited until they're not. And usually they're not because stuff isn't getting finished and they don't see that end goal. So the creation process is very exciting for a lot of people with ADHD, but then the actual seeing it through, you need to be disciplined because otherwise it slowly starts eroding at you as you go through.
Okay. So they really they need to know what the purpose of the work is and what the end kind of looks like.
Yeah, I mean, it's so for me that like I always say start with something simple because seeing something from beginning to end, it it gets the brain working. And Tony Robbins talks about priming your brain.
Mhm.
So if you're priming your brain and you start a whole lot of stuff and it doesn't finish, we all have those internal limiting beliefs, negative thoughts that kind of roll through of you're going to fail, you always fail, this doesn't work, it never works. And like that, like kind of inner dialogue that a lot of us have on the negative side. So when you're starting a lot of stuff and then it all kind of pauses and it's not being finished, that's what starts running through your head on a loop. And it becomes a lot more real when you see, oh, there's all these things that aren't being finished. Where in reality, you started a whole lot of stuff that most people couldn't do. And it's that kind of frustration and the back and forth, and having someone to talk to when you're going through it and go through that side of it. For me, my wife, once we met, is I talk to her when I'm kind of going through that, and she kind of helps me work through. She doesn't have that at all, but she knows for me, talking it through, I can kind of start getting to the end of, okay, this isn't that bad. I self-vocalize it. I'm like, oh, if I just do this, I can get this one done. And it's just that thought process of getting the thoughts out loud that really can kind of trigger that, like get your brain working. And what we were talking about priming before, priming your brain so that you do see something finished. Because then once you see one thing finished, your brain is then focused on how do I finish the next thing? Instead of you start a whole lot of projects, you're in the middle, and it's how do I finish this? And I can't because I've got this other thing to do and this other thing to do. And so it's just literally that side of it of how can you make it as easy as possible, finish one thing at a time. You get the confidence and you get that feel of, oh, all right, this isn't that bad. This is easy. And it literally just sets you up for success compared to being stuck into that kind of back and forth and really just stuck kind of mode.
Gotcha. Okay. So if you start a project and you have like, okay, this is going to be huge, it's going to be, and you get really excited about it, I assume, because you get a picture in your mind, but you start getting towards the end and it doesn't feel like it's going to match that initial picture. Is that a demotivator as well?
It used to be for me, and then I got really heavily into Neville Goddard on this, going into psychology and all that, and living from the end of. So for me, I really do believe we get that feeling from, and you get some people will tell you it's a different timeline, or it's a higher self of you, or it's you in the future, like however you want to kind of term that. But when you get that excited feeling and you feel it so just so insane, like you feel that joy, you feel that happiness, like, oh my God, this is like just eye-opening. That feeling is there for a reason. And it's remembering that feeling when you have those, like I write them down, like I journal, like, hey, I started this project and I had the best feeling about it. Like I try to like relate, like when else did I feel like this? And it's remembering that and going back to it, because we don't always get those really like those bits of just genius or bits of like something that's really going to push us along. So when they do come along, I want to remember it for the good of how great I felt, instead of, oh, I had this great idea and I just wasn't able to execute it. And like down the line, like you forget that good feeling, because if you didn't finish it, that's where you kind of get into those cycles. So if you can finish it, it's like, I love to live from the end, as Neville Goddard said, to figure how it can all go right. For the longest time, I was stuck in a negative loop pattern, and our brains, by the time we're 35, about 90 to 92% of most people is automated. You're in the default mode network of your brain and you're doing the same things over and over again. So if that inner dialogue is very negative and like has limited beliefs kind of scattered through there, and that's what's running all the time, you aren't going to finish a lot of stuff. You're talking yourself out of it. And that's, I've seen some of the most brilliant people have the most, like the best ideas that have come out. Apple, like Steve Jobs used to talk about it all the time. He almost quit multiple times. And it's like he's no different than us in that aspect. We have that kind of pull of maybe it's just easy to drop it all from right here. So usually when you feel that little bit of a pull, it's the whole, if you're hiking or you're climbing a mountain, and right before you reach the summit, your legs feel like they're going to give out and you want to quit, because like your body's almost like trying to quit on you. And it's usually when you have that feeling, if you can notice it, just keep pushing forward, because you're very close. Is that what your body is giving you, that visceral reaction, is this is change and it's not familiar, and it's just automatically lumping as anything change is scary, or that your body doesn't feel right. So I've learned to embrace, when you have those feelings, it's usually something pretty great. And if you could just tough through what you're going through, see the end of it, then you realize opportunities start coming. And I'm like, man, if I would have quit that, opportunity 2, 3, 4 never would have happened, because I just would have closed it off in my mind and it just wasn't interesting to me anymore. So yeah, it's finding that brief, those bits of when you feel that joy, when you feel something pulling you, lean into it. That's your intuition telling you that something there creatively is going for you. And the more you can tap into that, the more you can really listen to yourself and find what's best for you.
That's brilliant. Yeah, I loved Neville Goddard. There's so much wisdom in that whole idea of feel it real, and just ending every day with a vision of what it is that you would like for your future, and kind of like communicating that to your unconscious mind as you're drifting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Every time I go to bed, I'm like, all right, now's the time. Now's the time. And then I'm out. And I'm like, oh, wake up the next morning. Okay, well, we'll try again next time. Can you, do you do that? Do you do the whole, like, you're drifting off to sleep, like visualization?
Oh yeah, yeah. I do the Tony Robbins priming every morning, and
You
I
do.
do some type of meditation at night that I do visualize what I want to do. So I'm big about, especially, so it's a neuroscience hack that why when people say when you first wake up, go to the bathroom and say your affirmations. The science behind that is that your brain is still in a partial mode, that you're very suggestible to your subconscious. And they say in those, the first 10 minutes that you wake up and the last 10 minutes right before you go to sleep, that your brain is in that most kind of suggestible mode outside of when you're, that's the only time you're awake that you're really that suggestible. The rest is when
Yeah.
you're sleeping. So if you can really use that time to your advantage, not be on your phone, not be looking at stuff that's going to stress you out or worrying about what, and most people worry about the future. So they're looking at their phone if they have a big meeting tomorrow and, oh my God, it's going to be so stressful. And that's what they're priming their brain of how they're going to wake up. And then they wake up stressed and live stressed. And so it's finding that, I walk through, if I have a big meeting going on the next day, I did this for this meeting. I wrote out how everything could go right for this podcast, of what I wanted to talk about, or what I hope to talk about. And it's a better way of living. I still do look into the negative. I try to gauge what's right for risk and what will help me. But what I really started leaning into was, what if it all goes right? I obsessed forever of how everything could go wrong and never really thought of how it could go right. And that's part of the equation too. So if we are going through, I actively tell people you don't need to be toxically positive and just super positive all the time. But what you can do is start literally looking at both sides of it. We worry ourselves sick about how it could all go wrong. Think maybe for a little bit of that, how it could all go right. And if your brain starts seeing that, we have the reticular activating sensor in our brain, the RAS. And if we tell it to focus on something, it's going to look at it. And Tony Robbins does a really cool trick often, that he'll say, look around your room, take a quick stock and find me everything that's red. Red, 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 go through. And he says the word red over. So he's priming the brain that you're looking at red. And then when the person stops, he'll say, how many brown things did you see when you looked around? And their focus got so little that everything was like looking on the red side. And then he had said, I'm sure then your brain, to give yourself that dopamine, looked at some things that were brown and maroon and tricked yourself, saying, well, that's kind of red too. And to just kind of give you more of that. So our brain is looking for that actively. And a lot of cases, what I find within people is that we have a very negative mind pattern. I own it myself. I had it and I've worked to switch out of it. And it's what I coach now, is how can we notice what the thought pattern is, if it is negative, diagnose it, talk about it, and then slowly rework things so that we can think a little bit more positive. Stop ourselves in our thoughts so we don't go on a train of just negative thinking, going down rabbit holes the way people talk about it. And I've gotten to a point where, like, sometimes something will upset me and it's for 3 to 5 minutes. And now I can cap that at 5 minutes. That after that, I'm like, all right, I'm done feeling sorry for myself. I've learned the science behind it. It's wasted energy. You can ruminate and be as sad as you want for 5 minutes or 50 days. And your brain is looking at the same way. You're just putting yourself through a whole lot more stress the longer you do it. But it's fine to feel something. I tell people all the time, anger, sadness, emotion, feel it all you need to, but then come out of it. Okay, how is this working for me? It's why is this happening? What's going on? And how can I make this a positive of what I'm doing? So I really believe if you can flip the script of life happens for me and not life happens to me, you take a lot of power back.
Yeah.
And you start realizing there's a lot more in your control. And I love to use this example of when I was a teenager in school, I had really big dreams and all these kind of things that I was looking forward to. And my life has turned out 1,000 times better than I ever could have expected as a kid. And I've gone through some of the worst things I think people could go through, traumas and all that. And I look back, but I wouldn't change a thing. And I really look at it, I'm like, man, I'm grateful for the negative things that have happened to me, because I've really been able to turn that into, I have this confidence that no matter what kind of setback I have, that I always come out better for it. And that's been the story of my life. And if you're looking for the positive, that's what you're going to keep drawing to. And for me now is when I have some of this friction or something that doesn't go the way that I expect, I thank, it's a Kabbalah type teaching that they talk about your vessel, and they try to say outwardly that you say, God, what a pleasure. You're sending me problems. Send me more. And it's kind of like that mentality of, if you can go in with that type of mindset, it helps you switch it. And I like to use a lot of different spirituality. I come from a Christian background, that my dad was a minister, and I wanted to learn. One of the coolest things that both my parents passed on to me was they told me never to be scared of other people's religion, that if someone believes in something bigger than themselves, they're on the right path in life, that they're trying to do something better. They're trying to be a better person than what they are today. And they
Yeah.
said, and they like encouraged me, don't not talk to the people, like actually actively talk to them, learn about that. So
Yeah.
I've got friends who are in religions of all backgrounds, and like learning about the Kabbalah is just like, man, a lot of that is all about like that our body is a vessel, and what are we doing to either expand our vessel and make it as big as possible to help, or are we doing stuff to constrict and shrink in our vessel? And you can really like kind of look at that in so many different patterns and ways. But I've really looked at, okay, how can we really just jump in and be the best version of ourselves? And what are we dealing with? And what are the decisions we can make to really put us on a path that gets us to where we want to go, instead of this constant kind of cycle of always feeling uncertain, not sure what's going to happen, and feeding into a lot of the things that are making us more stressed. And that stress on stress is just really causing more and more issues within people. And you're talking about sleeping patterns, sicknesses, illnesses. That's when it gets into epigenetics. Is the more negative thoughts you think and the higher your cortisol is, it can literally shut off gene receptors in your body that could be something that's fighting off a disease for you. So it was really a mind-opening thing for me when I saw your thoughts can make you sick. But what's the flip side? If they can make you sick, they can also make you better if you think about it the right way.
So true. Yes. Cortisol is my enemy. That is, I've been fighting with cortisol over the past few years, and I've finally like, all right, I've got you figured out. And so that's like my big thing that I'm working on, is keeping the cortisol low. What's your advice for that?
Ooh, so for me, I'm still getting there.
Yeah.
I'm so much better than what I used to be. I can cell phone that I until I met my wife when we were dating, she taught me how to relax. It sounds very simple, but I couldn't relax. I was always thinking what was happening next, what work was happening next. I was a workaholic. I was so into that frame of mind that if I wasn't grinding, I wasn't doing something right. And I
Mm,
had to unwind from that because it just wasn't healthy anymore for me. And I realized you can make money, you can be successful and do it on these terms. And I got big into frequency of, if you're vibrating at a higher level and you're happy and you're positive, more happy and positive seems to attract more happy and positive people, where negative and sad attracts a lot more negative and sad people. And so I realized a lot of what I was doing, it was brought on by the way I thought and the way I felt and the way I thought life should be. So I thought you needed to grind to like work 80 hours a week to be successful in life. And I wanted to make the most money that anyone ever made in my family. And I had like all these just heightened expectations, and I made myself sick trying to reach up to that because I was a perfectionist. I thought that that was like a badge of honor that I was wearing. And I look back now and I'm like, I just, man, I can't believe that I used to think that way. But I saw why I always had, I mean, I had stomach issues all the time. I didn't realize it was anxiety. I just thought it was just something that was passed down to me. And crazy enough that I'm doing more work than ever now, and those stomach issues are completely gone. And the sleep pattern issues that I had, that I mean, I was on Ambien for years because I couldn't regularly sleep. It was cortisol. It was nothing at
mhm.
all that I couldn't sleep. I, and part of it is ADHD related. This is a symptom as well. As I tell people, you probably should go talk to a doctor about it to get treated. If when you lay down, it feels like you're turning on a computer and then your mind races and then you're just up all night. Part of
Mhm.
that is cortisol, but that's also an ADHD response to the T of your body's finally in a relaxed state and it doesn't know how to relax. So then the brain goes into hyperdrive. And it's wild, but that was me for the longest time. And I now go, like, I realize how much I need to meditate and just literally get back to a center. And I always tell people, you feel usually anxiety in your chest to some extent, that you like, you feel that rising going from your stomach up of when like you're getting, man, you're getting mad and mad. And I'm like, when you start feeling that, that's when you take a walk, you got to get away. It's like your
Yeah.
body's telling you that that heat is rising, and how do we move around and get going? And yeah, so it's really finding that. And then also, I mean, very simply, we live in a cortisol led society of you watch the news, their words, no matter what side you're on, you watch if you're watching consistent mainstream news in America, you're getting a lot of, this is terrible, this is awful, everything is like the world's coming undone. And it's like that kind of thing that affects people. That like if that is always in your face constantly, and then you look on social media and everything's perfect there, and you don't know what to think. Your brain and your like just whole mindset's kind of in chaos. So it's really
Yeah.
finding out, like I tell people all the time, especially on the cortisol side, what's in your Instagram algorithm? Is it stuff that you all like and makes you feel uplifted? And if it's not, change it. And like that,
Hmm.
Instagram instituted a new thing, I think like a couple months ago, that you can actually reset your algorithm. And I
Yeah.
actively tell people, I'm like, if there's stuff on there that's stressing you out or getting you kind of amped up to any way that's not healthy, ditch it. It's like that's truly, a lot of people go to their social media to unwind for a couple minutes. And I find a lot of them, they're getting more stressed out by actually going on it. And like the more time they spend on it, it's worse for them. It's that whole RAS thing coming back with the brain. What we see and what we're filtering is part of our human experience on every day. So if we're seeing a bunch of stuff that gets us angry, and then we're watching the news and that gets us angry, and then we are at work, something doesn't go right and the cortisol is coming out, bad decisions are going to be made. It's kind of like going to be in the equation to some extent. So it's how do we limit that? And I'm very realistic of, especially because I was someone that I thought this stuff was an on-off switch. Anytime I had an anger reaction or frustrated reaction, I thought it was weakness and that I wasn't doing what I should be doing. And like I was like, all right, I'm not doing it right. I've got to retry because that didn't work. And anger and that those emotions, it's not an on-off switch. Feel them, let the moment happen, and then actually write it down. Go through then when you are calm, like we talked about earlier on. When you're back in that calm state, does this still make sense? Because if it does, then okay, then it's a decent thought. But it's no different than our bodies are comprised of water, majority of water. And if you have a stainless steel pan and you put water in it, you can see your reflection when you look down into it, right? And I always use the pasta example. So I'm going to go cook pasta. You can see that. So then you heat the water and then it starts boiling. You can't see your reflection anymore when it's boiling. The water is taken on a new composition, new chemical structure, and it is heightened and it's different. And that's what we are when we're angry. And there's no shame in admitting, like I got to the point I'd say, I know I don't make good decisions when I'm angry. Let me walk away and don't press me into one when I'm into those situations. And when you can have that honest conversation with people, people want to see what actually is happening out of you. A lot of people think if they don't get it right now, it's like a matter of disrespect or anything along that. Some of our brains just don't think that fast. Some people are very good of going into conflict, talking to people in person. I'm the first person to say, man, when I get into those stressful situations, my brain starts usually is at 100 miles an hour. It starts going 1,000 miles an hour. And any thought I have, if I don't finish it, then I get, it's that whole like not finishing a pattern is like I get frustrated if I can't actually say what I'm saying. And in most cases, when people are having any type of conflict or arguing with each other, it's you talk over each other, you cut each other off because you like you think of this and you want to get into that. And for me, that like if that happens 2 or 3 times, I'll shut down. Like I can't kind of engage anymore because it's just not it's not going anywhere. It's just kind of talking in circles. And so it's how can we unwind from all that and not put the expectation of just because we can get that response out of someone doesn't mean it works for everyone around you. So I've started asking people, like, especially when I work with them, if I'm doing any type of client work of how do you respond when you're stressed out? Like what, like, do you get reclusive? Do you, like some people like to be more social, like go out and just like kind of unwind and have a couple drinks, do whatever. Like people have their own kind of response to it. I really love getting into knowing people and how do you respond to it? How does it work for you? And where we've had a lot of our successes, we build client templates that are individualized of it. This is going to work based off exactly how you react to things. And
Yeah.
for me, like I did it for myself, the way I react to stuff, I was like, all right, I found a path and something that works for me that I can be 100% myself. If we can be authentic, it's where the magic happens. So
Yeah.
the more that we can feel just that safety of just being ourselves unabashedly, no problem, it really helps open up all creative kind of minds of what we can do or what we're capable of. And that's where intuition really starts speaking to you at its strongest. You don't have as much distorted noise going on. So the more authentic you are, the more tuned in, man, that's where all the good things start coming in. I mean, the ideas that I've had and the projects that I've worked on over the last couple of years, I know, man, I would have gotten there a lot quicker if I didn't have the distorted noise and the stress and cortisol going on all the time. I have a book coming out next year called Navigate the Noise, and it was all because of that. It was what I went through, and then I want to help other people kind of get through what they went through or going through, especially COVID. Our attention spans are shorter than ever, and COVID made that worse. And I know that there are a lot of kids that are in that like 7th grade to 12th grade range right now who didn't have a normal childhood compared to what we had. And I would say we didn't have normal childhoods. So it's crazy to see what they've gone through. And I know, I'm sure that a lot of those limiting beliefs and negative thought patterns are prevalent in what they're thinking. If their parents have the news on all the time and they're looking at these things on social media, it's just, it's so much bad that couldn't happen or can be out there. And a lot of them don't know that they can look for the good or prime their brains to see what they could do. So I want to be able to kind of give neuroscience hacks of here's stuff you can do like the 10 minutes before, 10 minutes after we talked about. This is stuff you can do tonight and just
Yeah.
try it. And you realize when you start priming your brain at night, I was always tired all the time. And a lot of that was that unfocused side of the ADHD of me. And priming my brain at night that I'll say, if I have a meeting, I was like, I'm gonna have so much energy tomorrow. I was like, if something goes wrong, it's not going to be because of my energy or because I'm tired. And it's just having that talk every day of I'm going to wait when my alarm goes off, I'm going to wake up and my brain's ready to go. And it's wild when you can say that and go through that of how things start planning out, especially what you can control within your body. I wake up with energy. I don't have a bad night's sleep. And it's all those things people say if you talk to plants it's had a reaction. It was that whole rice experiment in Japan where they
Yeah.
took rice that didn't get touched and then rice that had water in it. There was a third example, but essentially the three, what they did to the sets of rices is that one said I love you, one got no talking at all, and the other said negative words to it. And the negative words got nasty fermentation and it like went into this weird kind of state. And the one that was given positive words, the I love you, grew immensely. And the one that wasn't talked to at all was in between those two.
Yeah.
And so it really shows that there is something that when you speak something out loud, it's magic. It's like you can really like if you start saying outside and really getting that out, it can make a huge difference. And when you start talking to yourself, they say some of the most successful people have an active conversation. They talk out loud on a walk or on a run of, okay, like they get those thought patterns going. And so my clients and why I started my company is how can we start that conversation? How can we get that going? And how can we really help people get essentially out of their own way so that their best thoughts can come out?
Right. Right. What do you see with your clients as sort of a common negative limiting belief that most people have, and how do they get out of it?
So most common is the like I can't or I'm not good at that. Any of those things I'll rewire just to say if you say I can't or I'm not good at something, and I actively catch myself in this twice this past month, I did this to myself, and as soon as I said, I'm like, nope, I can't say that. Go back. Just say I haven't done it yet, or I'm not good at it yet, or I'm gonna be good at it. I'm just not there yet. And it's all how we kind of talk about because of that scorekeeping and kind of very finger pointing mentality in society. We're very tough. We tend to be very tough on ourselves and the way we talk to ourselves and the way we think about ourselves. And it's one of the things if somebody I've helped people who are trying to get into relationships of like not quite a matchmaker, but kind of helping them on that path, like even to that extent. And it's a very common thing with a lot of it that I find, and whether it's relationships or if it's business, that's holding people back is they don't actually like themselves. That was something I can honestly say I used to not, and I think it was because of how I worked myself till I was sick and I was doing all those things. I didn't really like that. And I don't think I was internally proud of it, but externally, it's what I thought I needed to do. And so I found that a lot of people have a lot of self-conscious issues of how they look, what they feel like, or what they think they're actually doing. And the crazy thing is we tend to think of all these things of what people are going to think about us. And it's like a crazy number. Like it's like 82 to 85% of the things that we think they think never actually even thought. It's just inside of our own brain. So when
Mm,
when I heard that, I'm like, man, that's a lot of wasted energy and a lot of wasted time. And
yeah.
how about we just? So it's just the very simple mentality of what do you want? What do you love to do? Find the hobbies that you love to do. Tap into that. When you tap into the things that you really love to do on a day to day, you get more creative and your brain starts thinking in different patterns. And if you can get your brain into those creative patterns that are more kind of open, I should have mentioned this before, but I'll add it now with cortisol, is anything that's cortisol or stress related, flight or fright, it works that same way. What opened my eyes is when I heard the example of our brain scans. My brain scan, if I'm stressed, reads no different than an animal being hunted in the wild. And
Mm,
that's when I knew I needed to stop. I was like, I can't think like that anymore. So like, that's just not, because I thought about stress a lot. It was constant. So if we can kind of realize, okay, like when you're in that type of brain pattern, and to not be as dramatic of the animal hunted in a while, I use this example. When you're growing up in school, like I had to go through this in English, history, and science class, that you would be reading a chapter and everyone kind of takes a paragraph or two at a time. And it's just, you're like the teacher will randomly call on the next person. So it happened to me a couple times where I lost sight of it. I stopped paying attention because my brain's just thinking and whatever other thoughts are going on. And then I get called on and then I'm like, oh God, I don't know where I am. And it's as you're looking to try to find where you were and like put the context clues together of how that all worked, you realize your vision is so narrow. You can't really see what you're looking
Yeah.
for. You're looking at like little sentences at a time and you can't. So that's what stress does. Stress really limits your focus of view. And when you're cool, calm, and collected, you've got an open focus. You can kind of see the entire room. It's not as
Mhm.
stressful. You're in more of that control, confident type mode.
Yeah.
So I always work with how can we get people to that confidence level as much as possible. All the time is impossible. It's like unrealistic, but it's how can we do little things on a day to day, not change your schedule much, and really tap into how you can feel those good feelings and feel that confidence and see the entire room. It just opens up so many more views. And I tell people a lot, you're not far away from your best life, your most abundant, richest, wealthiest life. A lot of people, it's just your vision is so narrow. The opportunities are there, but your vision is so narrow, you just don't see it. And as you unwind that stress and you really start looking towards that more positive, what works for you see stuff, and it's crazy how opportunities start coming in. The same opportunities would have been there, but you just really were kind of closed off to it energetically. So it's a way that you can really tap into your best self. And I always say the opportunities are there for all of us. It's how much do we really want to engage in that, and how much do we want to open our scope of view so that we're open to it.
Very, very good advice. Yeah, my husband was neurolinguistic programming practitioner, but he used to always say that when you're under stress, you're well, when you're not under stress, you can take in about 7 plus or minus 2 bits of information at a time. That's what your RAS can actually, or reticular activating system can actually get. But when you're under stress, it's 1 or 2.
Yeah.
It's just that narrow focus where you just like lose sight of what your reality really is. And 90% of the times you're losing sight of how life is really working out for you, and you're focusing on that 1 or 2 things that are stressful to you, and it just compounds,
Mm-hmm.
you just keep rolling down that hill like a giant snowball into a place where you don't want to be, right? So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, it's crazy. You mentioned Tony Robbins. Have you ever been to one of his events?
I have not, no, but I've been to other seminars similar.
Yeah.
But it's Tony Robbins is definitely one of the ones I want to get to. It's
Yeah.
I've a lot of friends who've done it and said nothing but the best things.
I was gifted the ability to go to just the online version because travel's been hard for me, but the online Unleash the Power Within. And I was
Hmm.
like, all right, well, I'll go see what this is all, a little bit skeptical of like, but they said at the beginning, like, play full on, like
Hmm.
participate. And I'm like, well, I'm here. I might as well. I
Yeah.
got more out of that experience. It was just really well designed, very, very well designed. So I highly recommend it. It's definitely, yeah. And a lot of the same things that you were saying of, people's negative thoughts are always sort of like, I can't, or it's not going to work out for me. And just like this negative self-talk that's going through, you have to look it in the face and really kind of like, well, he did
Yeah.
this one exercise where you have to take it to the nth level. Like, okay, it's really that bad, right? So like, let's go all the way. Like, what does
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
mean? What does this mean? If this is true, what does this mean for every aspect of your life? And where are you going to be in 5 years if this is true? And then you're
Yeah.
like, well, screw it. That can't be true. I've got to
Yeah. Yeah.
fix this.
Yeah.
And you just start letting go of like a lot of the negative self-talk because it just becomes, first of all, kind of ridiculous, but
Yeah. Yeah.
also like, oh yeah, no, I because one of mine, and it was like negative self-talk of I can't and all of that stuff.
Mm.
And I mean, I took it to the nth level and I was homeless on the streets. And it's funny now if I drive by a homeless person and then it's just like I kind of
Hmm.
laugh to myself. I'm like, that's where I went with that. It's so ridiculous. So, but I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
doing the work that you do with clients, very similar to what Tony does. It just it's so simple, but
Hmm.
it's like something you can't really do for yourself. I don't think that's why I think
Yeah.
coaching is so important.
Yeah.
Doing it for yourself just takes so much longer, and you really shortcut it for people, don't you?
That's the goal. And I mean, to put it in really like simple terms of what we do is where intention goes, energy goes. It's like
Mhm.
what we're thinking about, that's where your energy is. And in a lot of cases, it's people are really great at what they do at work, but then when it has to come to that same, like whether it's scheduling, prioritizing, they're great when it comes to work, but then they just want to turn off when they get home, and it's not that same type of energy. A lot of people will kind of sell you, oh, if you change this and you do this, then like everything changes. And I always say, like, what are we dealing with, especially like within this situation? Not make major changes too crazy, but to kind of give a little bit more about where those negative loop cycles start. And I think a lot of it's just almost priming of like, we get into that, you're hearing that negative news constantly. And then if you're in those mode of like majority of people that like 90 to 92% of what you do is automated, you're going to work and it's usually a job that people don't like, and it's or that stresses them out. And then they come home and they do the same routines just to kind of get through. And they're like, people talk about the whole phrase working for the weekend. So you're going through 5 days of whatever just to get to 2 days. And for me, like it took another example, but I worked on a music album that I was really excited about a couple of years ago. And it was so exciting. February, they announced the track list. So a couple of my songs on there, I'm excited. I'm really just all pumped up. My birthday's at the end of March. I don't remember that birthday. And I can't really tell you almost anything that happened between that March and October. It was really great when it came out for about 2 weeks. And then I looked at it and I was like, I just traded like 7 months of my life for 2 weeks. And in reality, when you do the math, it's very close to if you're trading 5 days for two all the time. And it was just one of those things that I realized, man, I'm wishing away time. I was wishing away time. And
Mm.
it's a lot of us don't even realize we're doing it. And that's where we fall into that default mode network that we don't even realize. And Joe Dispenza talks about a lot that people get addicted to lives they don't even like. And it's a scary thought, but it's like you go through that and you're working for the weekend, and then you're stressed about what's going to happen at work tomorrow. You're looking at your phone right before you go to sleep. And then the first thing you do when you wake up, when your alarm goes off, is you look at your phone and you go right back in your emails or text or whatever that was stressing you out beforehand. So you're priming your brain that you went to sleep that it's going to be stressful, and then you're waking up that it's going to be stressful. And that's where I say you get into those loop patterns. Where you can break that is how can we put the phone away for those 5 to 10 minutes before you go to sleep and when you wake up? How can we, like I say that most basic, if you brush your teeth with the same hand all the time, do it with your other hand. See how hard it is muscle memory wise. And you realize that your brain is going to pay off. Like if you drive the same way to work every day, pick a random day on Wednesday and go a different way. And it's little things like that of your brain expands so much with neuroplasticity when you do something new, especially when it's something you don't want to do, when you force yourself into stuff. And sometimes you'll do it and you'll be like, okay, it's not for me, but you tried it and you got over that hump. You didn't just assume. So it's really falling into that of how can we like go with our brains. And our brain, like we've got neuroplasticity, I think it's like 75, 80 in that ballpark. So you should be playing those games with that. How can we switch as much as possible? As you like, I know with my grandparents, as they got older, they did kind of the same stuff all the time, every day. It was a very routine kind of nothingness to some extent that was kind of going on. Do you want to live that way, or do you want that? And a lot of people are living like that as late teens into early adults into their adulthood, that same way of that. It's just this like life isn't great and you've got to go through a lot of crap before everything gets good. And what I found is if you're into that mentality, it's usually a lower based frequency mentality. And when I say lower based frequency, it's more the anger, sadness, frustration, not happiness, joy, and beauty and love. We know the difference between those feelings and what does it bring out. And I got big into changing my circle of who was around me. I had a lot of friends, and it was who made me feel the best about myself, who actually valued my time, who looked into my time in that type of way. And it's crazy. I mean, my mom passed away 11 years ago, and people who I thought were lifelong great friends of mine disappeared for like 2 years, 3 years. But like, I don't know if it was just uncomfortable. They didn't know what to say to me or whatever. But man, that was a time when I needed my friends more than ever. And it makes you realize the people who like really are there for you and into that mentality. And a lot of us get into that keeping up with the Joneses, whether it's friends, if it's having the bigger house or whatever, and that we feel we need to be in that type of social circle. The bigger thing is finding the social circle that connects with who you are and appreciates you
Right.
for who you are.
Right. So true. Yeah. It's interesting because I don't drink. I exercise a lot. And but there's like older friends that I've had around who like it wasn't even an issue, but it's almost like me like living a more healthy lifestyle is like an offense to them or something. And so like they don't they'll say things like, well, I guess I'm just a bad influence on you, as they're drinking bourbon. And I'm just like, you do you, but it's just, but it's like, there just becomes this separation. So it's just like finding those people who are also like trying to uplift themselves. And then it becomes like a feedback loop, because they're trying things and I'm trying things. And then it just becomes like they uplift and I uplift. And I feel like, yeah, it's so important, the people you surround yourself. What's that saying, that it's like you are the sum of the 5 people that you
Yeah.
surround yourself with, or something like that. And it's
Yeah.
so
Malcolm
true.
Gladwell. Oh yeah. The
Yeah.
5 reflection of the 5. Yeah. You're spot on. Yeah, it's wild. And for me, I led with people because I had that same situation that you're explaining.
Yeah.
And I told them, I'm like, you don't need to feel bad. Like I'm doing whatever choice it was. I was like, I'm doing this for me. And I let them know, I'm like, you'll hear it from me. And I was like, this is, especially me, the last 5 years, probably life closer to 10, but I'd say at least the last 5. If anybody comes to you saying I said something negative, I've gotten to the point where I just don't say anything negative. If I think it, I try to drop it, and it got to the point, that was the point of nothing like that. That's not my place to say, not my place to think. And
Right.
it's just like, I kind of got into that mode. But it was, for me, it was one of those, I judge that. I feel like there are different people in life that you're going to go to, and you're going to have people who uplift you, that you want to be better for. And then other people who are not really happy that you are finding peace, joy, and happiness. And I've had some of
Yeah.
these people in my life, and they were people who try to bring you down. And it's that uncomfortable. They're happy with you at the level they knew you. And if you start doing something that is bettering, it can scare people, and it shakes. And so I've said with people, when you're going through any type of path of enlightenment, or you're trying to be better to any extent, you're going to have people who like the version of you just the way you are. They don't want you to change, and it's not a you issue. It's their thing with change. And we deal with it with change too. When we feel that fear, it's what we were talking about with the mountain before. When you feel that like push or that negative kind of friction hit, it's usually something great is on the other side. A lot of people will then retreat. They have that issue with a friend or whatever the case is, and then then I'll have one drink. And it's like they compromise what they're going for just to make others feel good. And that's where I say the authenticity. If it doesn't feel right for you, don't do it. And I
Yeah.
let them know, you be you. Like I support you as a friend. I've got your back. And I let people know, and especially I was like, come to me in the saddest times. Like as a society, I think that's a real measure of friend, especially what I went through, and I saw it that way. Like I let people know, please talk to me when I'm sad. I want that at that point, probably more than ever. But we're like, when your friends, like for me, my friends are like family to me. And when you have people like that, I'm like, no, I want to be there for you when you're going through something. I can't always fix it, but you know what? I'm going to be there for you. And I think we've lost a lot of that in society. So I tell people, it's no different when people are going through a change, or having that type of soul searching that they're going through. Support them for what they're going through, as long as it's positive. If it's something that's negative to that extent, have that talk. Like it's an uncomfortable talk to have, but yeah, when people are doing things that are like giving them more peace and happiness, and they're smiling more and they're happier, that's a good thing. So I try to find the positivity, and I always tell people, like for me, it's become like a red flag in my book of when somebody else is negatively talking about somebody else to me. That's where I'm just like, you know what? I don't really want to associate with this person outside of this conversation. Of like, if that's how they talk about people. And I realized I used to do that in the past. Like I was very critical and judgmental when I was in that work high stress state. And man, it did not do much for me. So I found it much more peaceful and much more helpful to people, finding the good in things instead of constantly looking for what's bad. It's that RAS. You can look for what's
Yeah.
good, and you're going to find what's good. But if you look for what's bad, you'll find that too.
Yeah. Whenever I hear anybody talking bad about someone else, I always immediately think, I wonder what you say about me when I'm not here. So
Yeah.
there's always this little bit of suspicion, because it's pattern recognition. It's just, you're seeing somebody's pattern. This is what they're doing. This is what they do. And I don't know. It's just, yeah, I don't like to partake in that much at all. It's like, but if somebody's talking good about someone, I'm all for it. Like we're all here to lift each other up, to expand each other's horizons, to help us all find out what we're really made of, which is what this whole podcast is about anyway. So
absolutely, which I love what you're doing. It's I mean, the biggest challenge I would love to challenge anyone listening to this of take stock in who makes you feel good about yourself, who makes you like have that, take stock of it, because the people who make you feel good about yourself, man, they'll bring a whole lot more joy to your life than the opposite.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Oh, that's such good advice. I could talk to you forever. You just have so many good insights. And it's so
Thank you.
funny because it's like so many of the things that have worked really well for you have also been like things that have worked really well for me. David, if somebody wants to work with you or learn more about you, follow you, so if they want to fill their social media with your content, where do they find you? We'll have links in the show notes, but for
Yeah,
those who
yeah,
are listening, where can they
you
find
got
you?
it. David McKee 84 on Instagram, as well as another angle consulting on Instagram. Those are the easiest ways to reach out to me. My
Okay.
emails and everything's all linked up there. Feel free to start a conversation. We always do our first session just as a exploratory. It's free. How can we kind of help, to what extent? And we're very honest of, if we can help you, we let you know how, and if not, we send you the direction of someone who probably would be better for you. So yeah, we do everything on a personality base. We do a personality test. It's a lot of fun, and at the minimum, you find out a lot about yourself, let alone what you can do.
Amazing. Thank you so much for being here. And I have a feeling this won't be the last time that I talk to you. This has been just so enlightening. Thank you so much, David.
I agree. I'm looking forward to a part two. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Thanks.